So the beginning of the 19th Party Congress, less than 2 hours away. My colleague Elaine Reyes sought the perspective of Martin Jacques. He's the author of When China Rules the World, and he's a senior fellow at the Department of Politics and International Studies at Cambridge University.
Let's look to this week's 19th Party Congress as it begins. What are you watching for, listening for? What are some of your predictions?
I think that probably the sort of standout will be at the end with election results, because obviously that's going to be very important, who's on the standing committee of the Politburo and so on. So that's obviously one thing to watch for. But I think generally, what comes out of the Congress in terms of the major themes. And one of the characteristics of Xi Jinping's leadership, I think, is, a series of innovative policies on lots of different things, a sort of decisiveness and an innovation. And I think that'll be very interesting. I don't think really there's been a dull moment during his general secretaryship. It feels as if things have kept on moving. I'd be surprised if that doesn't happen at this Congress, although because so much has happened over the last 5 years, I think part of it will be sort of a process of consolidation. I wouldn't be surprised by that.
So speaking of the last 5 years, the last Party Congress, anti-corruption, the environment were some of the big themes. How has China done in that regard? Has it been successful in accomplishing some of its goals?
I think it's been very successful, actually. I mean, let's go through some of the key things. Economy. I mean, there was a certain amount of unease about what was happening to the economy, the reduction in the growth rate and so on, the need for structural reforms. And I think that now it's kind of entered in a phase where, of course, there's a lot to be done and there's a lot of adjustment to carry on, so nothing is finished. But the work in progress so far has been, I think, quite successful, and in some ways a lot more successful. I mean, look at the rise of, China's tech sector. Anti-corruption. I mean, I think the anti-corruption campaign is extremely important, and I think it's had quite a big impact, actually. Not least not enough yet, but not least internationally. China singled out the question of corruption for major attention. There are a lot of countries that need to do that, including in the West.
How closely are China watchers and the international community going to be looking at this 19th Party Congress this week? How important is this?
Well, I think you've got to think of it in two different ways, really. It depends on where your vantage point is. I mean, in China, obviously, it's very important. This is an extremely important conference. Because of the way it's structured, it's a review of a serious review of the last 5 years and a perspective for the next 5 years. We don't have anything that's equivalent in the West, in my view. Now, how the Congress will be seen from other parts of the world, and in particular the West, I think is that the West still doesn't really understand what, the Chinese Communist Party Congress is about. It's so different from what they're used to. I mean, let's be realistic. This is the most important political event anywhere in the world over the next 5 years, because that is how important China is now, and that's how important the Chinese Communist Party is, not just to China, but to the world. So this is an extremely important event, but it won't be recognized. But having said that, I do see a little bit of a shift in the mindset. It's getting more coverage, it's getting a bit more serious coverage, at least in the sort of what we call quality press, quality media, and so on. Reflecting the fact that China's now so much more important.